Hey there, Shop Maniacs. You listened to another episode 700 of the ShopTalk Show. I'm Dave Rupert. With me is Chris Coyer. Hey, Chris, we did it.
Unbelievable. Congratulations, Dave. We sure did do it.
Another honey in the pocket. You know, that feels good.
It does feel good. To celebrate, we're going to record an episode of ShopTalk Show, which feels like an accomplishment every time, I'd say.
Well, I didn't phone it in this time. I tried to 3D print some cool glasses that had like episode 700 on them. Let me get them for you real quick. Let me just get it for you. I'll show you what's going on here. Yeah, they turned out great. You know, it's just like a little bit of spaghetti angel hair pasta from the 3D printer, and
you really did though. You can see the one of the sides of the glasses.
Yeah,
there.
here's the number 0 is right there. We were so close, man, but it just complete
I heard
failure.
when it goes wrong, it goes wrong. Huh? Is it useful when you have a 3D printer if it starts going wrong to be there, because then you can just hit the abort button and not waste a bunch of filament? Or
I mean, I think you waste filament, but by not being there, but like how much? You know, what was I really going to be like? Oh, I found it at exactly 0.5. You know, maybe if I was around for the first 10 minutes, but you know, it's going to fail in the last 20 too. You know, it takes like an hour. Am I really just going to babysit it? Like, yeah, it's whatever. A couple grams of filament that I wasted, and you know, that's not ideal, but it is what it is, sort of. You know, so I don't know. I've been getting into 3D printing. I got this thing finally set up, and I like to print chip clips. That's my number one thing, and anything that bothers me, I'm like, I'm gonna make this. I'm my own Amazon now. It's great.
Yeah. So that's good. I can see. I see it's kind of captured the kids. Maybe that's where the market was all along, because there's so many toys and they are so pleased with them when they come out.
Oh yeah, I've like printed some like cats that like bungee. You know, I printed some like little fidgets. I think I have a fidget around here. But anyway, like my daughter's super into it. She's been into like nails, and so she has this whole like nail salon at the house basically. And like I've been printing like organizers for her because she's not very well organized. So I've just been trying to like, hey,
organizers,
let me help you. I'm going to print a bucket, and you can put this stuff in the bucket, and now everyone's happy. So that's sort of, it's good. It's been a lot of fun. I like, I've been interested for a long time, and then I stalled out like for a year.
Do you
setting it up
from your mobile device? Is that how you roll?
Yeah. There's like an app, and I just say, hey, I like that, print that, you know?
That's what I think. That's what I didn't realize that until recently, that you don't really need to learn anything. You need to buy this thing. You need to install the app. You need to be able to swipe on your phone to find the cool thing you want to print, and need to know how to press a button that says, please print this now. Right? You're not doing any work, right?
No, it's very little. Like, I mean, 3D modeling, that's where I got in trouble maybe on this model. Is this was the first one I tried to like model myself, because I had to like pull it in, edit it, you know, and it should all have worked, but it didn't. So I don't know.
Yeah,
I'm learning though, you know. You know, when you're doing something and you're learning, but it isn't. Like, the failures don't make you mad. Does that make sense? Like, that's a fun place to be. So, yeah.
Wow, that's very philosophical. I like that. We'll celebrate by doing a couple of ones, topics and questions that users have sent in here. I have one from Eric Mickelson that I liked, because I came up, had this issue the other day. I love web components everywhere, but it raises my eyebrows when I see a ton of people just straight up embedding the CSS for the components in the component. I get that sometimes this makes sense. Like, if you have a dialog web component, you probably don't care about the CSS used for opening that dialog being in the initial payload before the web component is defined. Cool, I get it. But I'm seeing a lot of like, a button component, a link component, a checkbox component with the CSS in there. Is this a scale thing? Like, I work on marketing sites and small apps, and it's like, cool, it saves us $250,000 a year to depend on the JS and whatever. Like, Anyway, we could stop there. What's your take on this? Like, do you chunk the CSS in the component, or don't you, or why?
Let's see. I mean, so I do. We do it through declarative, or we do it through, adopted style sheets. So we build a style brick. Same thing happens in lit. You have like a static styles equals, but you build a little style template, and then that gets adopted as like a style sheet at the component. So it never renders in the shadow DOM, or it doesn't render in the shadow DOM like as a style tag. Although now you do see adopted style sheets in Chrome Web Inspector, so that's kind of cool. But but it's just sort of like a phantom style sheet that it has been adopted.
Right. And that seems to make sense to me, that it's not just like you have this string that you barf out onto the page and let the browser like understand what you mean by this new string that has arrived. Somehow the adopted style sheet feels like more programmatically clean to me, although I don't know if that's reality or what.
Yeah. I mean, there's, some literal savings in that, like the overhead is not there, right? Like that's one DOM node, however many kilobytes of CSS in that component. There is... they can reference like component A and component B will be like, oh, you've already got that style sheet, I'll just use that. Like that's part of the component instance. It's like, so that's cool. And yeah, so like, yeah, I think like there are benefits there. Maybe I missaid that. I'll have to confirm that. But anyway, it's a pretty efficient rendering. I think one thing that is important, and if you work on marketing sites, you're probably used to like classes, and then I'll just use that class here and that class on this page. Or whatever. That's like an awesome way to build, actually. But I think when it comes to components, you have to think about one thing web components do is they go to other places, right? And so like if this component was picked up and put on product B, does it have everything it needs to render correctly?
Okay, so this is a good place to be. So maybe I'll show you why this resonated with me, and you can be like, what would you do? And I'll tell you what I did do. Okay, so I need to set this up audio wise. I'm going to go to two different websites that are different code bases. They don't even share a Git repository, right? So, okay, we're in different worlds now, but they are literally the same component. So this seems to be a case where you'd be like, oh, okay, I guess we really gotta do this here. So window, I'm doing the share dance, and I can't find it. There it is. Are you seeing my screen, Dave? It looks like you are. Yes.
Yeah, it could be.
So we have this
maybe,
this
sure.
beta, this yeah. Here we can get wider in it.
Yeah, perfect.
Beta page on CodePen explaining the private beta that we're in. The 2.0 has a little rainbow around it. Those are the official kind of colors of CodePen, and especially the ones that we're using for this 2.0, right? And this has it's a span with another span inside of it. So the parent span has like some padding and this conic gradient that goes around it, and it uses this specific monospace font, and then the inner one has its own background color and stuff. It's just how we implement it. But this is it's a React component, but it doesn't need to be like it. It doesn't need to be. It just is because everything else is React around it. So like, why not? I don't hate that it is. It's just, it could be a web component, And I was in this moment where I'm like, okay, this page is a WordPress website. Oh, look, there it is. The rainbow badge button thing. And this used to just be yellow text behind it. And I was like, oh, now that we're getting close to releasing this, I think we should be really consistent with the look. This little rainbow badge that we have should just be everywhere. So I'll bring it over to the WordPress place quick. And so I guess I'll give it away. I didn't make it a React component over here. I just gave it a class, Dave. There it is. CodePen 2.0 badge with the inner, and it does the same kind of styling. But now I've replicated that CSS across across two code bases, which is that thought where I was like, yeah, why don't I just make like a 2.0 badge web component and I'll just find some nice way to share it. Like I can do that. That's not a hard thing to do. And then the CSS, as Eric has written in to ask us, what would I do with that CSS? In order to make this useful, I think I would have to bake the CSS into the web component, or I would want to, because that's what makes it really consistent. I don't want to say, oh, here's your component, now bring your own CSS. Then I'm not solving the problem that I'm supposed to be solving here. So
yeah, I mean, if it, like, let's say you were a part of like a white label thing or something like that. Like you are, you sell me CodePen, but when I sell it to schools, I call it Kid Code Extravaganza. It's called Kid Code Space, and Kid Code Space has a different look and feel or something like that. In that situation, your 2.0 badge maybe has the default colors, but maybe you offer to me to make it more like my Kid Code Spaces brand, So in that situation, you are just sending a hook, like a set of variables, style hooks that I can override in my theme. So like now we're getting into kind of like, you don't necessarily have to ship CSS. You can ship just variables, but or just, I guess, variables that apply.
No, we're talking about themability, right? So in your web component, you could set up a bunch of part attributes and then say, hey, these are the parts you have access to styling from the outside. Or you could do it like you're saying, use a bunch of variables inside and then say, hey, let these cascade in if you want, or whatever. Do you find that Shadow DOM versus not Shadow DOM informs this? I was thinking, like, if it's Shadow DOM, you need to be applying styles somehow.
Yeah. I mean, Shadow DOM, you do have to apply styles. I mean, if you're going a light DOM web component, then you don't really benefit.
I think it's almost
like,
dangerous to bundle your styles then, because the styles that you apply could leak out.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, you could use that scope or something like that, to kind of mitigate that.
Oh, yeah, that's true.
But I would also kind of consider, only touching the components you author, and maybe the styles you inject are always whatever, like CodePen -20 button or whatever 20 badge. And that is, all your styles are prefixed with that if you're going the light DOM route. But if you're in the Shadow DOM route, you just say host. So, and I think I read yesterday
I'm obsessed
you
with
can
this,
use colon scoped or colon, and it's the same thing as host in a Shadow DOM or something like. So it's like. So maybe in the future we don't use host or we use scoped. I kind of, I was reading this after midnight, which you should never read specs after midnight. So I don't know how true it is, but I think there was kind of this proposal to kind of make them sort of coexist or because they kind of do similar things. So maybe they are.
Yeah.
They
I've heard it's good for speed too. Like I wouldn't say, Eric, oh, this component bundles CSS. That's bad. I would not assume that at all. It could be straight up good. I don't know. Like I just don't. I think you should be careful about making assumptions there.
Yeah, and I how many we've talked about the junk CSS file for a long time, right? So what if instead when you make a component, like I have my bookshelf on my website, I inject a lot of CSS for the bookshelf. What if I just made a book component that injected book CSS? It would probably save me a lot of like, oh God, where did I put that CSS? And so it might be a benefit to future maintenance. Like right now, it's just a burden because you have to you have styles in the component and in the global level. You're doing both. But it might be a benefit to future you when you're like, dude, I just wanted to change the button purple and then it turned all green, and so why It solves the. It solves
might
the.
depend on where you're coming from. I guess that's a good point. That if you're the type of person who's only ever styled components hand in hand with the CSSs right next to it, which is like a lot of people in the world, I think that feels very natural, and that's, of course, they would do it that way. But there's a lot of developers out there that are used to just having this global style sheet that just does everything. They just have a very different opinion of it, and that nobody's right or wrong.
Yeah, I mean, you could also think of it as if you view, one of the many CSS for React component implementations. It's pretty close to CSS modules in terms of like shipping you just pull in those styles, and now we have that whole, what is it, import with type CSS and everything but Safari right now, if I recall correctly.
You do.
And like with that, and that is something you can like polyfill like through a transpiler or like through Vite or something like that. But you can import that in, and so now you're using a style sheet, you're importing it into your component, and with the shadow DOM scope styling, it is only rendering to that component. So you didn't have to robo-barf or anything. It's just literally like, oh, style sheet, staple it on here, done. It's a very efficient.
Isn't there there's like I don't know, if your web component is one file in the end, it's totally bundled all the way down to just like button.js, including those CSS, that you can get a little wrist slap for that. Be like, okay, JavaScript takes longer to download and parse and deal with than it does to have not put that CSS in there. So the performance penalty you're paying is that you have this bigger JavaScript bundle that it involves a bunch of like literally like bytes of code that just don't need to be in there. I don't know how strongly I feel about that. I've heard the other way around. I've heard, it's faster actually to bundle your style. So it's just one file, you download it, it's got everything it needs the second it needs it, and it's a done deal. I don't know what the real story is there, like which is quote unquote better.
Yeah. What I can say is I know people at Edge are looking into this actively, and I don't think there's any public data, but and I don't think it's particularly private, but like there's some experiments with, like if you use a link tag in a CSS file, is that better?
Sure.
Or sorry, in a web component, is that better? It's not great because it goes and spits out another network request, and you could,
But so does an import statement for a CSS file,
So does an import, right? And then
so does a
fetch,
so does whatever,
Yeah, the import though, in theory, that bundles, right? Like at some point we probably bundle that down, but and then your components keep making requests too. Like if you have a link tag, whereas like if you had like a single JavaScript class, that would only make that request once.
As soon as you're doing requests, then you're worried about caching and breaking.
Yeah, requests are expensive. Like bytes are the next most expensive. So you're kind of like trading, pain. I think there's actually some specifications being proposed by Edge. I know there are, particularly around Shadow DOM. But how can we just like adopt a style sheet? How can we get like all of our styles out of the CSS file and just adopt a portion of a style sheet? I think it's called @sheet was the proposal. I don't know what the status is.
But, I haven't caught up with that, but somebody reminded me of that the other day that we need that to be really good, but I don't know. I can't speak to it, but I'm sure it is good. Can I share with you my my really stupid new web component here?
I love it. Yeah.
Yeah, you're the president, so I have to show you stuff.
Logging in.
So my idea is that I always forget all the attribute crap, you need to make a popover work. And then like an anchor position popover is even more complicated because you got to remember which thing needs the anchor on it and all this stuff. So I thought, I'll make a web component. I'll just call it a-menu. And then you give the button a name and it makes a button for you. And then you just put a menu inside, which did you know that that's just a substitute for a UL? Like this is valid HTML. Menu is just...
Oh, is it?
Yeah. A menu is just a UL. That it maps the roles map and stuff. Anyway,
okay. I'm gonna just throw on my accessibility guy pre-complainer hat and say, careful with that one. I don't know that menu's everybody's favorite, so that's.
Oh, I'm sure. Anyway, is it not? I thought in NVM it says it just maps roles.
Yeah, so I don't think people love it. Yeah, I think careful. But anyway, I'm not.
Okay, imagine for now that it's a UL then, because that's what in my brain it's supposed to be. But I can change it. Because the thing that I forget is like, okay, you have a button here, right, and you have a UL here, and this is the pop-up, right? So, or a popover. I can't even remember that.
Popover,
and right, and this is like, what are all the stuff that you need to make that popover open?
That's popover target on the button.
Popover,
and that has to point to an ID. Oh, one word.
ID.
One word.
Oh, see, Dave, you're making my point, but let's go on. So this, we need to name this. So Dave's menu, and this is Dave's menu. The popover target points to the ID of the popover, which is the thing with the popover attribute on it. And then this needs like some kind of command or something?
No, that should work as is.
Okay.
And then, you could, and that should probably work actually if you put some text
Dave
there.
in here.
Yeah, and that should hopefully render something.
Yeah, it does.
Okay.
You're right. That's all that needs. But okay, you got to remember those two things. But then there's...
Anchoring.
I don't know. Yeah, the anchoring and stuff. So let's stop right there because my brain is so hard. So I was like, if I could just have this API instead, then I don't need to remember it. It'll just do that work for me, was my thinking. This is not genius because now I'm depending on JavaScript when I wasn't before, which is the kind of the point of those attributes are that they work without JavaScript. So I've ruined this. This is very stupid, but bear with me. I did it anyways. So now there is a menu extends lit element. I'm just using lit element with TypeScript so I can do the cool little decorator thing where or isn't that what you call that? The @ sign is a decorator?
Yeah, that's a decorator, yeah. So it's kind of like, it's really weird, but it's basically a function that is going to take whatever's after it in as the context, like you're passing it into the function, and then which is custom element define, and you passed a parameter, the name, and then it'll take the class as what you're passing into it. So it's pretty
that's
neat
exactly what's happening. So I don't have to call define element and stuff because it's going to happen in this thing that you can think of as a function. All right, so I turn off the shadow DOM and lit. That's the weird way that you have to do it there. But so this is what ultimately I'm spitting out is all the HTML that's already there. So this menu is going to stay in there because I'm not using the shadow DOM. So this is going to stay on the page, this menu in the HTML. And I'm going to get this style block, and I'm going to get this button. And the button has on it the command and the command for, which is a different way of doing popovers. It's the invoker way of doing it, which I think I like also. Whatever.
Totally. It's like it's like weren't you talking about last week? It's like these two teams aren't talking to each other or whatever.
Yeah, Jeremy mentioned that because I think if you were going to have a command on it, it could be like do geolocation or whatever, and then that command would ask for the permission for geolocation and then put the contents of the geolocation in an input somewhere or something. I think that's a cool idea, is to have all these commands available that are like built into the platform that do certain things, but you're doing it declaratively, which is cool. All right, so there's the button. It just takes that attribute and it uses that as the name, but you get the button for free and you get the attributes for free that you don't have to remember. which I think is neat. But then I was going to say, okay, so now you're relying on JavaScript, but whatever. You also don't need to do the ID pairing because that's going to happen automatically for you. It's going to put that ID on the menu for you. That's happening here, but for the audio listeners, that ID is basically using like a math.random situation, and you're getting a unique one because you can use this as many times as you want on the page. So you need a unique IDs, and you need a unique command for attribute to bind them together. Cool. And then you don't have to remember to put popover on the menu. You just get it automatically for free. And then you get the anchor positioning too. And that's why I thought of this, is because it's like, you almost need like two things that are unique. You need the unique ID, and then you need a unique anchor name as well. And there's no reason that like the thing that makes them unique can't be shared. So I'm barfing out a style tag, but I'm doing it in the fancy, the lit HTML-ish kind of way. And so it puts an anchor name on the button. That's the thing you're anchoring to, and then it anchors the menu to that button. So that's not surprising. I don't think this is not like mind-blowing code here, but notice this menu opens next to it and here. I know it's a bit small in this, but for audio listeners, there's two buttons, and the menu opens anchored to both of the buttons separately.
Yeah.
But why this, Dave? Isn't that weird? Like, why would I bother with that? I think this is kind of interesting, and I hadn't thought of this use of scope before until I did this. But if I like get rid of the scoping, see what happens when this refreshes is that it's not correctly bound to anything. That's kind of a problem. And if I just say, these don't need to be unique, then I get another problem, meaning the anchor name and the position anchor don't need to be unique. Then I'm opening this menu, but it's bound to the second one. Yeah, and it's because I'm not in the shadow DOM here. This necessarily kind of needs to be in the light DOM. It's because they're both sharing the same ID. It just opens on the wrong one. So these need to be unique, but they also need to be scoped to each other. Right. It's just kind of a weird little situation.
You could I think this works, and you're right. From progressive enhancement perspective, you could send a button with the attribute and with the thing, but you're kind of trying to make a short code or something that basically wires everything up for you. And we do something similar. It's like, just send us the menu list, and then we have to generate IDs to make all the subnavs. Subnavs is a huge one with Anchor. You have 50 subnavs or whatever. Making that all wired up correctly. That's something we have to do. And so,
fun.
With your styles, you can put everything in one thing, but you could also make everything but those dynamic IDs in the shadow styles. You'll have to use host and slotted menu. I think you'd have to do in this code example.
But isn't this kind of like an unholy thing of light DOM and shadow DOM together? When your shadow DOM needs to interact with light DOM children, you're entering this sort of who's the boss phase, but right.
But you can think of it as these are just this. I'm never going to change I need all of this stuff, so we're going to lock it down. We're going to put it in the shadow DOM. I don't want anyone putting in an important here that's going to mess this up. And then the anchor position, the position anchor and the anchor name, those have to be matchy-matchy, so I'm going to control that piece. And so I think that's
but see how I'm doing it in CSS here? That's what is the challenge. I think it's much more common, and this is true of view transitions and stuff too, is that you do it here.
As a style equals. That's what we do,
I think that's fine. It just kind of it doesn't gross me out. I just wish I didn't have to do inline. I just, for whatever reason, wish I didn't have to. I wish I could do this stuff in CSS instead. And if you do it down here, if you do it on the style attribute of the button, it's actually better because then it only applies to that one single button. Whereas here, this style block that I'm inserting becomes global styles. That's why this breaks without the scope on it. This breaks because this applies to every single button on the entire page. And then the second one that gets rendered overrides this first one, and it's screwed. So it's just not the right way. I just did it anyway. The scoping fixes it, and
there's other ways you could do. So you could with adopted style sheets, you could so you could maybe not. Never mind.
I don't know.
I'm going to back out what I was
too hard about it.
So you can adopt a style sheet on the document too. So you could have your components, if you're going to have 50 buttons, you're going to have 50 style blocks, right? 50 menus, 50 style blocks. So could you adopt some style sheets, shave off some kilobytes, or render,
I see what you're saying. The more of these A- menus I appear on the page, I'm just getting a bunch of repeated styles that really don't need to be there. And instead, I could import a style sheet that's used the same 50 times. Yeah, of course. That's definitely more efficient. Yes, I'd say so.
And then you're scoping this scope block, which is clever because I like that better than the style tag thing.
Right, so you could just leave these lines in here only, and then have the rest of the styles be a adopted style sheet. That's clever. Why not? I like that idea. I could try that.
Well, it's fun though.
I like it.
That's fun. Hey,
all right.
give me 1 second. My
the
dog
idea
is mad. 1 second.
Sure.
You guys have no chill. You need chill.
I probably will actually blog this too in this kind of embarrassing.
A squirrel went in the backyard, and that was a huge fucking problem, apparently. Sorry. Anyway.
I'll probably blog this in a never do this kind of way because I've just taken what's an HTML feature and pulled it back into JavaScript.
Oh, dude, you're fine. Yeah, no, that's I think there's room, right? I think there's a. You can go into the purist and this should only be buttons and native HTML, but when you're talking about adoption or dude, we have 50 of these, maintainable code, you can be on that side, and then if you're so there's a mix to me of, and that's one thing I like about web components is they don't care, or it's very flexible in how you render them. You could go full declarative shadow DOM, full on, you're sending the template for everything, or just let JavaScript, kind of, and then it's I don't know. There's some criticisms or whatever out there, and I just feel as the president of Web Components, we just need to chill out. It's very flexible technology. Render it how you think is best, and there's probably going to be some learning curves. I
felt like Brad Frost for a minute there, though, because it was. You remember when he was hot? He probably still is. I don't know. On the global design system thing, that one of the examples was I don't want to have to remember, or the world would be a better place if I didn't have to remember pairing up a label and an input with the for attribute and all this stuff. That you should just be able to pull in, some kind of component that has an API such that you can't screw it up. That it's definitely going to pair your labels and your inputs. That's just better. That's just a good little micro kind of organism-ish kind of thing. And that's what this felt like to me. It was I just want to have a button and a menu, and they're tied to each other without me having to remember to match the IDs and use the scope and use all the correct invoker attributes and all this. It's not that I want to totally not have any knowledge. I just want to have a component that just does it correctly. Damn it. Is there space for that in the world, or is this just don't you just learn how to code?
I think the random ID, the UUID thing is where you need to start thinking about how you're going to do it. I can make your menu thing all in HTML, Chris. I'm very good at HTML. But like when you're like, oh, but there's 2 on the page, I'm like, uh-oh. Like, you know, like, or I could server generate that random UID, but like now we're getting prescriptive about what the server has to do. And so now, you know, is that going to be dropped or forgotten by an implementation team? 100%. So like, how do you, like, it also depends on the team and who's using it. You know, we've had, with our components, you know, I've had teams literally tell me like, we'd have no front end engineers, you know? And so you're like, well, then the chance you guys one shot HTML goes down considerably, you know? So now, like, how then how can I accommodate that through my API, you know? So it's really about what you're optimizing for: consumability, reusability, you know, exactness. There's a lot of different levers there to optimize for, and so we try to do a good job. But you know, it's a big web, it's a big internet out there. So.
Well, should we do another question?
We could probably got time for one more here on episode 700. Yeah. John Elwood writes in, I used a V component in my PHP app last week by just using a script tag to a CDN and writing some code. Super simple. It was so great. I went to my boss and said, I love Vue. So as I sit here waiting to speak to HR, I'm curious about your thoughts on Vue. I don't hear much about it, but it's easy to write and brings a lot of nice tools to the table. From what I can tell, why isn't it more widely used tool? What don't I know? Love you guys. Keep up the good work. Thank you for listening, John. Long time listener, John.
Have you ever seen those like international charts that say like country by country what's the most popular framework? And it's React, Vue, and Angular are always the top 3. But like what the percentage per country is, and there's plenty of countries where Vue is winning and Angular is winning. It feels like React's always winning, but it's not really. It depends on where you are. And Vue has some super countries for sure. I don't think Vue is forgotten about, John. Not really. I think there's plenty of Vue lovers. Dave did a whole startup in Vue at one time, you know?
I use Vue. I like it. I kind of hit a weird angle on it, but, you know, I think that was kind of Nuxt and then got kind of stuck in Nuxt 2 and they went to Nuxt 3. I think it's on Nuxt 4 now, but
you had some pain there. You hit it at like an exceptionally bad time to hit it.
Yeah, I hit it mid-cycle. That's not when you want to hit something. And then but I will say the people who work on the Nuxt meta system stuff, like Evan Yu and Daniel Rowe and these people, they really care about the web. They're not, you know, they really do think about it. How do we do it efficiently, performantly? How do we bundle good and make that easy? And
well, you bring up a good point already there that John is hitting this from a totally different angle. He says, I just added a script tag to a CDN and I started writing code. That is Vue. Vue is, remember we had Evan on and he said, yeah, that's fundamentally part of the Vue, you know, spirit, is that you'll always be able to do that with Vue. It doesn't need to be this whole bundled experience kind of thing. Nuxt is totally not that at all.
No.
Nuxt is a bundled monster, you know, but on purpose, because it needs to be to do the things that it kind of do. But those are just so different. They're so different worlds.
Yeah, like Vue's part of its design is to be integrated bit by bit into a legacy application. No one talks about that. No one's like, oh man, that's what it's really good for. And that's what it's really good for. And so I like, you know, so if you are basically a PHP app, like you said, pretty static, or like once it's come from the server, it's just staying still, you know, like adding a bit of interactivity or whatever through Vue is actually a great recipe, because you're not like, oh God, we got to build up a whole Angular stack to like a mean stack to talk to the PHP app, you know, to talk to the, like you just dodge all that, you know, or how do we render React into our WordPress front end? You know, you don't have to worry about that. You're just like, we're just going to plop Vue components as we need them. But then it also offers let's go all in on Vue. Let's make everything a Vue template. And Nuxt is pretty great.
It just reminds me of just how different those approaches are. And I think that's fine. It's cool that they share that, but just don't get locked into your head that Vue is one particular thing. It's really just a syntax that can be used a bunch of different ways. For some reason, it reminds me of the Lego thing, where it's like there's certain people who like just do the Legos like the kit, and you have the instruction, and then there's the people that have a giant red plastic box with every Lego they've ever bought randomly smashed into it. And those are very different approaches to Legos, but it's okay. They're all Legos. Do whatever you want.
Yeah. Big, bin, or organized. You can do it each way. So
good, though. I'm glad you're feeling success there. You might want to look at Petite Vue too. That's the one that's like extra, especially for just browser only usage action. Little tiny baby Vue.
I don't know if it's like still under
it doesn't
development.
Seem like it is.
But it was kind of just like it was a flex. It was like I can make Alpine with Vue. But it's like super handy and like pretty feature complete for what you want to do. Like you just basically like get if statements on your divs, and you get like and you pass a little data model down, and boom, like
bada bing, which might come from your WordPress barf or whatever.
Yeah.
I talk about feature complete technologies. I'm a little over dealing with these because I've been in a mode for a while, as we're getting closer to launch, of like polishing up and finding little bugs on some of the blocks that we've long supported on CodePen. Blocks meaning it's kind of a new word for us on CodePen, and I know a lot of people use this word, but we're using it, so get used to it. A block is anything that processes code on CodePen. It's our little implementation of a particular technology, mostly mapping one-to-one with a technology. So there's like a prettier block that you add to a pen, and then it brings prettier to your pen, and you can configure it and all this. But prettier moves along just fine. It doesn't ever move is like nunchucks, for example. I love nunchucks. I think it's a nice little technology. It hasn't been touched in ages. But of course, I found one little bug with our implementation of the block. And so I spent some time fixing on that, and then found it in Less as well, which also probably hasn't shipped a new version in forever. And then found a interesting little thing about how Pug was coded, also a technology that absolutely never moves. So I'm spending my week on these technologies like, can I work on new technologies for once? But as you process Pug, when it hits certain warnings, it just console.warns them to the CLI. And I'm like, okay, that's not my favorite, because I want programmatic access to that error so that I can say it happened on this file at this line and all that. And we ended up like monkey patching console.warn to like pluck the data out of it in Node and stuff. Like it wasn't like a huge lift. It just was like, I think that's a little nice piece of information that Pug is trying to provide, and they just didn't do a very good job of providing it, and absolutely nobody works on this project. So like, I'm just going to do a little bit of something to pull this data out and call it good. I don't want to spend my day working on Pug, but we've offered Pug for a long time. It still has plenty of fans on CodePen. It's a feature complete piece of technology,
Like, doesn't Anna Tudor like use it religiously? And I'm like, whoa, you're doing Pug, huh?
Oh yeah, no, I saw somebody in our beta channel yesterday post a screenshot, and they are ripping Pug in there. It's common-ish in the main thing is it's got loops, it's got variables,
for loop,
and it's got includes, which was extra. HTML that has includes? Yeah, get me out of here.
Get out! No one would ever do that.
Nunchucks had includes, but they are even cooler because you could make them macros. You could pass. They turned into little functions that would take arguments, and they had slots. Dude, Nunchucks was ahead of its time. Nunchucks kicks ass.
Dude.
Just so you know, people, and absolutely nobody works on it.
Yeah,
so
why
rock and roll,
perfection. You know what I mean? That's the rule. Is that the to-go alarm here? We gotta go. Hard stop.
No, not at all.
Oh,
okay. You can go. Do you have a hard stop? You can say that you do.
Peek the old calendar. Oh, we good.
I have
we good.
That's just my doctor telling me when my colonoscopy is going to be tomorrow, Dave.
Hey, Good. Oh,
Good,
you're
Joy.
so good. Welcome to your mid
Yeah.
40s. It's a beautiful time out here. It's a
No, not my favorite, but we're
beautiful
working
time.
on it. I'm trying to stay busy today, because it's the day that you have to fast before it. So I'm like, I don't have time to eat anyway. I'm going around. I'm going to be the art helper at Ruby's class today.
Cool. Awesome. Well, that's fun. So, hey, 700.
Yeah. Do you have any goals?
What do we do?
Wishes?
We're going to win podcast. That's one goal.
Yeah.
Win
podcast.
podcasting.
Sure.
Number 2 goal. No, I don't know. I'm thankful Shopping Maniacs are helping us get through these trying tech times of funding and advertisements. And thankful, I'm, thankful we get a chat every week. I think that's fun. So, I think
So do I.
it's kind of like, what
I
are
don't
the
have any
twists
big
and
ideas
turns
for big
ahead? I
changes.
don't know. So, yeah.
Well, because one of the things I like the perspective of is that, I don't know. This is not a competition, but I watched Syntax do a video on YouTube where all 3 of these fellas wanted to. The thing was to order a pizza, but Scott did it with like an MCP thing with AI, and Wes did it with a AI powered voice. Like it was just going to literally call the pizza place and back and forth and order it. And what's the other fella's name? He's not on as much. He's on video as much. I'm super sorry. With the cool mustache. Love you, dude. His was my favorite anyway. He had to reverse engineer the APIs behind it. And, basically figure out their GraphQL endpoint and hit it with data and stuff and not use the website. Just hit APIs to order the pizza. And all 3 of them did it. And it was a fine piece of technology programming. I thoroughly enjoyed it. Dave, me and you are never going to have time to produce the pizza episode of Syntax. I don't think we'll never do anything big and cool like that again, but I want to lean into something else that we do, which is relatable, I hope, to a lot of developers, that we work all day, every day on big software systems that are honestly quite more complicated than ordering a pizza one time. These guys are very smart and work on big systems too. It's not a thing like that. That's what I mean. It's not a competition, but I want to lean into this thing. We're actually developers. We have hard stop editions because we need to leave because our days are so packed with stuff. We need to go in and talk about how can we bring that perspective even more to this show while still making it interesting? Because sometimes when you're really big and doing the type of work you do, the stuff is so niche that it's hard to make palatably interesting widely, but I think we can do it. I think we can bring our perspective somehow of we work on big things for real. And I want to talk about that because I bet the people listening to this show, you do too.
Yeah, no, I mean, and I think that's fun. It is. I watch a lot, confession time. I was in Theo's top 4% of video watchers.
Ripping Theo. Yeah.
But and I think all these Prime, Theo, Syntax, they're all great, and I think Kevin Powell, I get so much from all these people. But I do think I sort of identify with what you're saying. We're in the trenches, very much, too busy to do it very good. And it's, I think that's kind of fun and unique. I think it's, I can think back to days when I was working on 4 or 5 clients at a time with Paravel, and it's got to turn around and record a show. It's just what's happening? I don't know, but it's good. Hopefully it's useful for the podcast, that we're, the stuff we...
Yeah, I hope so, because we bring the high-level stuff. I want to talk about new features and news and stuff, but maybe less about that because we don't have as much opportunity to dig into it as other people do. But our unique perspective is really digging deep on particular things.
Yeah.
You know, like
Well,
here's just one quick one I'll do. Like, we had to go so deep today on this, as we have this beta feedback channel for 2.0, and people were saying like, oh, I'm really opinionated about like how my screen looks in this app, and that I want to have my editors over here and my preview over here and all this stuff. And I was like, we're early enough in this phase, and we have enough foundational technology in there. We should be able to make that happen for you. But like, what are our internal discussions like? Do we just drop everything because one guy asked us about this? No, we look around and find other feedback and things we can do. We look at how difficult the feature would be to accomplish and how well it slots into other things that we're doing, and make decisions about that. That's kind of interesting just right there to talk about. And then, but how does it affect the rest of the app? It's not just like, hey, I want to write a blog post about how you can have a UI that is remembered so that next time they hit it and you're like, you just put it in local storage. Okay. End of article. That's like, it's just too simple. You're like, okay, well, what about somebody hitting it that, doesn't have JavaScript, or the logged out person? Where do you keep it for them? Do you keep it or do you not keep it? Because do you attach the local storage to the user? What if you have teams and you can be in different contexts? Do you scope the local storage to the different teams or not? And then sometimes you want to share the UI in a particular state that's unique because of the code or how it looks or something. So we're going to have these URL parameters. Are those more powerful or less powerful than local storage? And then if you hit it, do you override the local storage with the new things or not? And then let's say you want to have like settings for a user that says, mostly I want to have like my code on the right and my preview on the left. Does that go in the database? Does local storage override that or not override that? And where do the query parameters in it? And then, okay, you've made all these decisions. Where do you document these decisions? How do you explain these decisions to users? Dave, I love this stuff. I know that was a lot to come out of my mouth really quick, but that's the full implementation of a feature.
It's like database versus local storage versus URL parameters.
Query parameters
who
versus
wins?
not having any of those things.
Oh, yeah,
any of those things
versus,
could be
like,
missing along the way.
Yeah, anonymous even,
Right.
Yeah, right? Like those are fun. Those are like, what is the correct thing, in that situation. And like the implementation of the feature, right? Like it's forget how you describe, like whatever. If it's a dashboard or something, that's kind of way less interesting. I kind of don't care, but how does it work and how it, like, what is good? That question of like, what is good here is very interesting. Like that gets my brain,
What's
can
the
build
best solution technologically? And then I don't want to explain that to anybody. I'm not even going to put it in the docs. I don't think you should have to read docs about that. I think it should just work about how you expect it to work. And then that's it.
Yeah. And then, it's just kind of like...
There's going to have to be developer-facing docs that explain the decision-making.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And tests to make sure that it tests correctly. But yeah, it's not the biggest deal in the world, but I think that's more interesting than this high-level thing that just superficially talks about light mode versus dark mode or something. Like, that's not enough. How does it go deeper than that?
Yeah.
Anyway.
Yeah, no, yeah. How do you go, like, real deep on a question? I think we do that here a lot, So thanks for sticking with us, everybody. I think that's what's fun. It's these sort of like problems you encounter along the way. Maybe the real friends we made were the problems we encountered along the way.
I know. It does make me feel like this is so fun and interesting. The fact that we get to share it does matter to me. There's all these like superficial things like, you'll never be on your deathbed and saying you need to work more. I'm like, I don't know, I might actually,
my parents aren't role modeling that for me. They're like, I'm still in the office. Don't.
Anyway, that's kind of a joke. Don't tell you too crazy, but I like my work enough that I think it's not something I'm like embarrassed by, really.
Well, it's something to do. That also creates, through a series of systems, creates food, and so that is also something that gets my brain activated. So Yeah, it's good.
Yes, sir.
Yeah. Oh, cool. All right, well, we should wrap it up. Here we are at 700, heading barreling towards episode 800. Oh my gosh, we're going 1 week at a time. Thank you, dear listener, for downloading this in your podcatcher. First, be sure to share it up. This will help you find out about the show. Follow us on one of the good ones and share with us your favorite Shop Talk memory. Maybe we can talk about that in a future episode. I just remembered timeliness. We got like a question like, hey, what do you think about that Tailwind stuff? And I'm like, oh man, we missed that window. We're never going to talk about it. Anyway, I just was like, oh yeah, remember? And yeah, anyway, join us in the Discord where we do talk about that sort of stuff. That's patreon.com/ShopTalk Show. And Chris, did you have anything else you'd like to say?
You'd think I would, but shoptalkshow.com.